We are here to talk today about 5 things you should never, ever, ever do to improve your change management communications. Cheers to that topic. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we get started, let's talk about the drink in hand. I would love if you guys want to kick back and listen to this video for the next, 15, 20 minutes. Grab your favorite drink because this is meant to just be enjoyed and to learn from. So today I have a very ordinary looking cup, unfortunately, but my tea is not ordinary. It is a beautiful tangerine tea today, and it is just amazing. The perfect tea to be talking about change management communications. Now, if you didn't get my sarcasm at the beginning, that's okay. We're going to be talking about 5 things you can actually do to improve your change communications. But, it's kind of like kids where you tell them not to do something and they'll actually do it. So we're going to go with that one. So, all right. The 5 things just right off the top that we'll be talking about today. Start your communications early, which I know it's not like brain science here, wait, actually it is. We'll talk about that. Awareness, engagement, and support communications. How do you kind of segment out your communications over the time period that you're working through? Communication should be always in primary seeking feedback. So that's item number 3. Item number 4 is start with your inner circle first, which we will also talk about a bit more here. And then item number 5 is engage your influencers. So you're not the only person talking about the change. Okay, so those are our 5 things that we're going to be focused on today. Let's talk about starting early. Okay, so I mentioned brain science. This is a very interesting thing that we've been learning about from our friend Allison, who is actually a neuroscientist. And if you guys need to understand a little bit more about how the brain works with change, she is a great resource on our team and beyond to help you guys through that process. But one thing that we've learned from her is that when anyone across the board, no matter what, your brain reacts this way. So anyone who's going through change, the immediate reaction is a stress reaction. So it's that fight or flight area of the brain. And what happens if you don't start communicating early is that people understand that there might be a change. They don't have a lot of information about the change. And what happens is that people stay in that kind of stress reaction area, and your brain automatically goes to coping. And when your brain starts coping, guess what's happening? They're making up their own reality. And I think I've talked about this before on this channel, but when people start making up their own reality, is it usually a good one? Probably not. It's usually worst case scenario, their biggest fears, whatever that might be. And so if there's this void of information at the beginning, particularly of projects, although it can happen anytime during a project, and people start making up their own realities, that's when you have a real problem on your hands. So start your communication early. Even if you don't have a lot to share, still share, because then people will get, A, you'll build that trust, but B, they'll understand what the reality really is. When you know you have a problem, it's when you start hearing rumors going around about things that are or not happening. And when rumors start happening, that is a huge signal to you that you're not communicating early and often enough. Okay, so start early. Again, even if you don't feel like you have a lot to share, even if it's like, hey, we don't have a lot to share, but this is what we do know, or this is what we're working on, this is what we've accomplished so far. I had one project just recently where they were like, hey, we're just waiting for approvals. Like, we don't have the full approval to move forward, so this is what we're waiting for, and until then we'll keep you up to date, but we don't have anything more to share. Okay, so that's first, number 1, start early. Number 2 is, how do you lay out communications? And a lot of our clients want to get like super detailed right out of the gate, and they want to cover all the information that there is about a project in one communication. First of all, usually email communications don't really work the greatest. We still do email communications every once in a while, but we like to mix in other forms of communications, videos, infographics, one-on-one, town halls, like you even chats on Yammer or whatever you guys use internally. There's all kinds of different ways to communicate. But when you are rolling out your communications, we usually like to recommend 3 distinct waves of communications. The first one is awareness communications. And this, if you can think about it in your mind as kind of the questions that we're answering, the first one is an awareness, is why are we doing this? Why are we doing it now? Which is super, super important, because you're going to have those people that are like, this has been a problem for 10 years now. Why are we tackling it now? You need to really answer that question. You need to answer what the high level scope is. You need to answer what the future vision might look like for this particular program. So if you think about that awareness communication, it's really like the why behind the change. Okay. So, and it's getting everyone, we tell people all the time, it's getting everyone on the same kind of starting point, because you might have people in the organization that have a little bit more information at this point than others. So just try to get everyone on the same starting line. Okay. And they're in awareness communications, to show you know, it's not just one communication. It is many communications. It's a packet of communications. It's a video. It's an infographic. Like I said, like this, there's not just one awareness communication. There's usually in our plans, probably 10 to 15 of them. So just so you know, and those are all different types of communications. Then the next kind of wave of communications is what we call engagement communications. And this answers different questions. Okay. So these are like, what's in it for me? What are the key changes that are going to impact me directly? How is this going to impact my job? What type of different skills might I need to complete my job? So it's really making the change personal to the individual who is going through the change. Now, you might not be at the individual level. It might be like, hey, we have these groups of people that are all going to be impacted, and so we want to communicate to that group of people how this change is going to impact them and what is in it for them at the end of the day. Always tying back to a couple of things: the vision of the project or the change, and the metrics around the change that you're expecting. Okay, so again, second wave of communications, there might be 10 to 15 different types of communications that you're doing during that engagement phase, but that is the objective, is to really make it clear on how this change is impacting an individual or a group of people and what's in it for them. Okay, wave number 3 is support. So support, if you can think about the questions that it's answering, it's what to expect at Go Live. What's the transition going to be like? How do I get trained? How do I sign up for training? How do I get my questions answered? So it's all around like the actual change transition itself, how people learn those new skills that they need, where are they going to get the support from. Blackout dates is a really important thing during some of these transitions, so we communicate that type of information. In the support phase, we actually end up having a lot more communications if you include like training invites and hypercare calls and all that kind of stuff. So there could be upwards of 20, 25, maybe even 30 different communications that are on a communication plan during that support phase. Okay, so that is number 2, kind of how do you work someone through change communications so they're bringing them along and they don't get lost. The 3 phases, again, are awareness, engagement, and support communications. Okay, So the third aspect of things that you should do to improve your communications during change is seeking feedback. As a leader, it is really important to think about communications in a different way. When people are going through change, all they want, their primary need during the change is to be heard. And we often forget that. And so communications become informative, like, hey, this is the information you need to know. When in fact, good communication during change is all about seeking feedback. And the more feedback that you can get, it helps people feel like they're heard, which they are being heard. And then it gives you a ton of gold information that you can incorporate into future communications. So if it's an email, if it's a one-on-one, if it's a town hall, if it's a video, whatever it might be, the whole intent of that communication is A, to get feedback, B, to share information. Once you shift that in your brain, it changes the entire game. So this is a huge thing as a lead on a change. When you look at a communication, if you look at an infographic, if you look at your presentation, how are you seeking feedback? And if you can do that effectively during that engagement and interaction, it is going to be a complete game changer for you. Okay, so number 4 is start with your inner circle first. What do I mean by that? So when you look at your user landscape, the people that are going through the change, who are those people who are going to get asked questions first? Okay, so in procurement, because we do a lot of work in procurement, typically that is a buying team and the AP team. The buying team will get questions from requisitioners, from people doing goods receipts, from their suppliers, etc. AP is going to get questions from suppliers. They're going to maybe get questions if you're from their end users, if they're used to using invoices only. So those are a couple of examples, but it applies to procurement and beyond. Like every change, you typically have a core group of inner circle people who are going to get questions first. They always, in your sequence of communications, get the communication first. So, and as an example, before we communicate to suppliers, we can communicate to buyers and AP, because we know the buyers and AP might get questions from the suppliers. So you don't want this happening. You don't want an interaction like this. Supplier contacts buyer. Supplier's like, hey, I hear there's a change coming because we just got this communication. I don't really understand it. Can you help me with my questions? And the buyer goes, I don't know what you're talking about. No one's informed me. Like that is like a popping a balloon in your particular change. You cannot have that situation happen, or you want to try to limit it as much as possible. So you always want to think about, okay, who's my inner circle? We're going to communicate to those people first. And we usually do this. We do inner circle first, then we do a broader communication out across the organization to the large masses of populations. Then we'll do a town hall or something more focused with certain groups of people. Then we might follow it up with a infographic or a video. And then the last people we usually go to are our influencers, because our influencers, which I'll talk about next, are those people who are really ears to the ground. They are having more interactions than maybe the internal team are. So we want to follow up with them kind of at the end to continue to have those conversations, but also to get their feedback. So start with your inner circle first. That inner circle are those people who are going to get questions first. Okay, number 5, engage your influencers. You should not, as a project team, be the only people communicating. Now, you want other people communicating in the organization, but you want to direct their communications. You want them to be saying the right things, not saying the wrong things. So engagement of your influencers is critically important. So as we go through each of these phases, what we usually do is we'll have a kickoff with the influencers, usually around the beginning of the wave of the awareness, engagement, and support. So get your influencers together, kick off the key messages that are going on with your awareness messaging, make sure they understand the vision, give them a couple of different activities that they can do to help spread the word. So depending on types of influencers, they might have different action items that they need to do, and then give them a month to do it. So a month or 2, depending on your timeline. But that will help get that communication out there. So you're giving them talking points, you're giving them presentations, you're asking them to do town halls, whatever it might be that you're asking them to do, direct those talking points but then give them time to do it. And then at the end of the wave, we engage with them again. That's when we get their feedback, we get their questions, we get their commentary like, hey, we heard this is going on, or hey, did you know about this, or whatever it might be. Those influencers are so key in getting that message out, but then also getting that feedback in. So make sure as part of your communication plan that you're thinking through your engagement of your influencers and strategically tapping them into each of those 3 waves of your communications. So with that said, just to re-highlight, start early. Understand how you bring people along with awareness, engagement, and support messaging. Seek feedback in every single communication. That should be priority number 1. Start with your inner circle first and engage your influencers. And I tell you what, if you do those 5 things, you are going to be off to the races and you are going to be a superstar when it comes to change communications. With that said, you can get more information on what we do at Wonder Services. If you need help with these change communications, we're here. We can do strategy work. We can actually write the communications. We can produce videos, infographics, websites, whatever you might need to support these communications. We are right along there to make you a rock star when it comes to change.